Our church is a light in the darkness, a city on a hill. Every believer is called to make a difference in the world, to love God completely, and to make disciples of every nation. But in this busy, mobile, noisy world, it can be difficult to even do the basics: to pray, to read the Word, to bring the love of God to our marriages, families, neighbors, and co-workers. We know you're here because you want to be a part of God's mission on the earth. You want to experience the abundant life that Scripture talks about. You're looking to connect your faith to every part of your life, every day of the week. That's why our church is subscribing to Right Now Media and making it available for free to every member of our church. You'll have access to over 10,000 online Bible study videos on parenting, marriage, finance, discipleship, leadership, and many more. The videos can be used in Bible study groups or for personal devotion. There's also a huge library of safe biblical kids videos. We'd love to see every member of our church utilizing Right Now Media. Small group leaders leading their adult or youth groups through engaging Bible study series. Children enjoying safe programming that doesn't just entertain, but helps lay a strong spiritual foundation. Families spending quality time together, going through devotional Bible studies. Couples using biblical studies on marriage, parenting, and finance, applying God's Word to every area of their lives. There is something for everyone. We want to help you grow as a disciple of Christ, and we want to help you become a disciple maker in your home, your school, your workplace, your neighborhood, in whatever mission field God has called you to. We believe that this free resource will help equip and unleash you to live out your faith in every area of life, to experience God-centered, abundant life, not just on Sundays, but every day. We are for you, and God is for you. He wants to empower you every day to live for Him. Together, we can be a light in the darkness, a city on a hill.
The reality is we've looked at this for some time, but Right Now Media was just not in the budget. And one of our families has come forward and anonymously donated it and is paying for Right Now Media for us, for you, and for me. This is impressive. I don't know if you have the chance to go look at it and to research it. It is awesome how it can be used in families, in small groups, and everything. They said it can be such a blessing to you, as there's so many Bible studies, and you can literally just watch it on your phone at home, however you want to do that. Now, this is how Right Now Media is going to go out with our church family. Tomorrow afternoon, if we have your email address, we are going to send you an email, and you have the option to accept it or to decline it. And we hope you accept it and utilize this, and I think this could be such an incredible blessing for our church family. I called Right Now Media this past week, and you need to know this, because one of the concerns was, will they share it with third parties, the email information? They will not. They keep it in-house, and they do it that way, and you can literally subscribe, you can accept it, and you choose your own password, how you're going to utilize this. So I know Ron is going to come up at the end and kind of reiterate if I've forgotten anything, but it's a great opportunity for you and for your family with Right Now Media. Okay? Excellent. A couple weeks ago, I was talking with Ron, and I told Ron, I said, I would love it if we could do a sermon series together that's all about Jesus. I know that sounds so strange to say in church, you know, all about Jesus. Of course, we want it to be all about Jesus. And he suggested, how about meals with Jesus? And I got to thinking, how many times did Jesus sit around with people and have meals? And then I got to thinking, wow, there's quite a few. Feeding the 4,000, feeding the 5,000, Last Supper, and the one we're going to share with today. As a matter of fact, Jesus was eating a lot. I like it because I want to be like Jesus, and I like to eat a lot. So that's a good thing. But you know what? As we look over these next several weeks of meals with Jesus, I hope and pray, our prayer has been that you and yours come to the table of the Lord, and we feast together. So today, I want you to turn, if you would, to Luke chapter 5. and we discover a meal together. Luke chapter 5, verses 27 to 32. See, I believe sharing a meal together can sometimes be our most spiritual moment of the day, of your day and my day. James Dobson, I don't know if that name rings a bell with you, did a study years ago, author and teacher James Dobson, and he said, if families will sit around a table, and can I add a little P.S.? James Dobson's much sharper, much smarter than I am, but maybe sit down the phone, turn away from the electronic device just for a moment and talk and interact together. If parents and families will do that, at-risk behaviors in adolescents and young people drastically drops. I think that's interesting. Come to the table. Let's read the scripture together. Luke chapter 5, verses 27 to 32. After this, Jesus went out and saw a tax collector by the name of Levi sitting at his tax booth. "Follow me," Jesus said to him. And Levi got up, left everything, and followed him. Then Levi held a great banquet for Jesus at his house, and a large crowd of tax collectors and others were eating with them. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, who belonged to their sect, complained to his disciples, "Why do you eat and drink with tax collectors and sinners?" Jesus answered them, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance." There are two things in this passage that jumped out to me immediately. And I wrestled with this outline. I'll be honest, I was in a meeting the other day and I shared that with a group of guys. I wrestled with this and I felt like I just prayed about it, and then God just hit me with it. And it's so simple, but it's one that I want you and I to see today. The first off, it's this. Jesus looked for lost people. Jesus looked for lost people. The Sea of Galilee provided a natural amphitheater for Jesus' teaching. And Jesus had a way of drawing a crowd. And at the end of many of his teachings, as is here, he put the message into practice. The story is recorded in 3 of the Gospels, the Synoptic Gospels. Many of you probably heard that name. It literally means same. The Gospel of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. John is kind of, in and of itself, very separate. But the Gospel of Luke and the Gospel of Mark call him by his Jewish name, Levi. And he himself calls himself Matthew, which is Aramaic. But we truly can't appreciate how radical Jesus' concept of forgiveness is. Judaism had clear boundaries concerning who was allowed in, and Levi was not. Yet Jesus taught that God was compassionate, and that compassion would lead to breaking down the normal boundaries of Judaism and reaching out to the ritually impure, even to lepers and tax collectors. Jesus passes a tax collector sitting at his booth. And as a tax collector, he would have been very opposed to Orthodox Judaism. The Hebrew meaning of tax collector literally means this: oppression and injustice. See, the Jews hated the high percentage of Roman taxation. Taxes on poles, on bridges, on roads, on harbors, on income, on the town, on grain, on wine, on fish, on fruit, etc., etc. But the Jews really hated what Roman taxation represented. That's Roman domination of the people of God. See, think about it. Matthew would have been ostracized to all forms of Jewish life, especially their synagogue services. As the writer of the first gospel, we learn more from Matthew about Old Testament prophecies than any other writer. Perhaps Matthew longed for his Jewish roots and yet had to have job security. But then Jesus comes in and changes everything. He passes by and looks at Levi. Most would try to ignore him, but Jesus was different. He looked directly at him and calls him to discipleship right then. What does he say in verse 27? Follow me. You know, for several of Jesus' early followers, they had the option to return to their line of work. Fishermen can do that. But if a tax collector would leave their profession, he would have to leave for good. Verse 28, he left everything and followed Jesus. See, Jesus looked for lost people, and I love that he did. Like Levi, like the woman at the well, the woman who lived a sinful life, like religious people, like Nicodemus, people that you and I cross paths with every single day of our life. Jesus looked for lost people. But as much as I like that he looked for lost people, I love the second point even more. Jesus loved lost people. And aren't you thankful that Jesus loved and loves lost people? Because see, I was once lost, but I have been found. In the social world of Jesus' day, eating together was a way of developing and maintaining social boundaries. Meals were therefore political, religious, social tools for establishing and reinforcing one's position in family and society. And this is going to be on the screen, but I thought about it, and the truth is, if you share a meal, you share your life. And when you share your life, you usually end up sharing meals with someone. Listen to how Jesus, using meals or sharing his life, tore down walls that separated people. He often used meals to ignore one's social clout. In Luke chapter 14, verses 1 through 14, the Bible literally says Jesus was being carefully watched. I don't know if I ever picked up on that and that phrase until I started studying for this message. Jesus was at a prominent Pharisee's house, surrounded by religious people. And this is what he said. When you give a luncheon or dinner, don't invite your friends, your family, or your rich neighbors. Okay? Invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed. They can't pay you, but you'll be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. Because the truth is, sharing meals or sharing life tears down social barriers. Through meals, he created a new social group that included sinners and outcasts. In Luke chapter 5, which we just read, as well as Mark chapter 2 and Matthew chapter 9, where they are located in the two other Gospels, when the religious elite saw Jesus eating with tax collectors and sinners, he responded by saying, "It's not the healthy that need a doctor, it's the sick." See, sharing meals tears down labels. And then there's this third one. Jesus disregarded the rituals surrounding meals which built barriers between people. In Mark chapter 7, the religious leaders asked, "Why don't you and your disciples live according to tradition instead of eating food with defiled hands?" Jesus said Isaiah, the Old Testament prophet, was right when he prophesied about you hypocrites. I bet you that got their attention. "These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me." See, sharing meals tears down walls that separate people. Matthew takes Jesus home and wants to throw him a party. Who's on the guest list? His friends, who are sinners just like him. Who would have been disturbed by this party? It wasn't Jesus. The religious leaders would have been very disturbed by this party, and they were. And I love Jesus is not concerned with people's opinion about him. But Jesus understands something I think sometimes you and I forget. The church is not to be a hotel for saints, it's to be a hospital for sinners. And isn't that true? Come to the table. Come to the table. We talk as Christians about loving sinners and wanting to win the world. But sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes me, we want them to clean themselves up a little bit before they come in. Can we all admit it right now, right here, right now at this moment, we're all sinners. We're all sinners. I am a sinner saved by the grace of God. I want you to know that. Romans chapter 3, verses 23 and 24 is a passage that you probably are familiar with. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, and all are justified, that's made right in the eyes, in the sight of the eyes of God, freely by His grace through the redemption, which is a great word. It literally means to buy back. His grace through the redemption that came by Jesus Christ. We've been bought back, and we're made right in the eyes of God. But we've all sinned. We've all sinned. See, we, the church, are called to love like Jesus. But all too often, I choose not to. And God is calling us to love like Jesus. I love the parable of the Good Samaritan, and you remember that probably. The people that should have known better passed by the man who was in need, but the one who didn't have the religious background responded to the hurt person's need. May you and I just not pass by an opportunity to point people to Jesus. Some of you, many of you are on social media, not all of you, and I understand why. I understand more why and why my wife was not on social media for a long time. But it does have its good side. A friend of mine is a minister, one of the ministers on staff at a large church in the Tulsa area. And on my Facebook feed, I sometimes look at stuff, sometimes I don't. But whenever Brian put this out there, it grabbed me. And I wonder if it'll grab you. He took a picture by one of his friends. He had his arm around him and he said this is my friend Jason Ryder. He was baptized on April 29th of this year, 4 or 5 weeks ago. Last Wednesday, I showed him the 3 circles, which is a way to tell others about Jesus. Now, I was not familiar with the 3 circles. There are a lot of different ways that you and I can tell people and to train us to have those conversations with people. But I looked it up. It's good. It's good. I literally Googled 3 circles to share faith with someone. Brian challenged him to share the 3 circles with 5 people by Sunday. So this was April 29th. He shared it with 11 people. And he said, I'm excited to see God working in his life. Now, I'm not wanting to step on anybody's toes because I would step on my own first. But how are you doing at that? Think about it. If that's our call to go, how am I doing at that? 11 people in 4 to 5 weeks. Pretty impressive. See, Jesus looked for lost people. Jesus loved lost people, and he still does. And so should we. I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to take the time to read it, but I couldn't help but look up one of my favorite Christian bands, Casting Crowns. Many of you have heard this. I think it's Friend of Sinners. And you know what? Open up our eyes is a phrase that kept coming to me. Open up our eyes. All too often, I've passed by. You know, we've gone on missions trips. We've been going on missions trips for almost 20 years here at Christ Church of Yukon. Our first trip, we crossed from El Paso into Juarez, and we helped do some cool work projects and some cool things. I would not take a group or lead a group or be part of a group that would go in there nowadays. Probably. Well, okay, if God really got a hold of me, Donald, you're laughing, I might, okay? But he'd really have to be at work because it's not safe. It's not safe. But I'm telling you, we've done some cool things. We've gone to Cancun with about 30 of us. Yes, it was a missions trip, I promise. We worked with La Casita, which was like an orphanage for abused and neglected kids in Cancun. It was powerful. We've been to Guatemala working with kids at a couple different schools and get to do a vacation Bible school program and share the love of Jesus with others. We've been to inner city Dallas, and we've done mission trips and partnered with homeless ministries and done lots of cool things. Last summer, we did something different. And we're doing the same thing this year because I just loved it. We did something called Mission OKC. We simply, the 36 of us or whatever, stayed on site Well, some of the ones that couldn't handle it, they went home and stayed in their own beds. And then came back, just kidding. But we stayed on site and we bussed in. And we went down to the City Rescue Mission and we partnered with them and we did ministry for several days. And you know what? One of our high school boys, he's not here today, but so he's not here today. I'll talk about him. I'm so proud of him because he came up to me the last day. We broke into ministry teams and we sent people out to pray for homeless people and to pray for people that God would be moving and alive and active. Well, this high school young man that I've known for many years came up to me afterwards and said, Clay, I didn't really get it. Because why go down the street whenever you can go to glamorous locations like inner city Dallas or Guatemala or other things? He didn't say it that way. But sometimes I think we forget that there's an incredible mission field right down the street from where we live, in our neighborhoods. Think about it. Well, this high school young man came up to me, and we actually, in a group of men, we got to hand out water bottles to a homeless man who was going through an incredibly difficult time and was not a happy camper. And we got to pray with him. And afterwards, this high school young man who was grown up here came up to me and said, Clay, I get it. I get it now. And I did not get it. We are all about trying to create opportunities and for people to see, for you and I to see that, you know what? Jesus looked for lost people, but Jesus loved lost people. Your neighbors, your coworkers, your family, you know what? Some of them, if not many of them, might be lost. And we have the incredible opportunity to tell them about Jesus. The title of this I wrestled with, and it came from a book that I've been reading. And it was recommended to me from several minister friends. And it's simply called Eats with Sinners by a guy by the name of Aaron Chambers. And it's really been speaking to me. And I'm telling you, I've been a Christian since I was 16 years old. So that's a long time. You know what? If you want God to kind of stir you up a little bit, because it's very easy to become a little complacent, I would encourage you to read it. Eats with Sinners. This is what he says. Eating with sinners are building intentional relationships with lost people through which they can be introduced to Jesus is the most effective way to reach people for Christ. In your circle of influence today, how many don't know Jesus or have a bad view of Jesus' followers? A book by Dr. Gary McIntosh says this: 1,000 Christians were surveyed over a 10-year period. People came to faith 43.2% of the time through a relationship with a family member, 17.3% through relationships with a staff member, 15.7% through a friend, 8.3% through a teacher, 2.9% through a neighbor, and 1.8% through a work colleague. So approximately, and this is what he says, so approximately 73.5% of those surveyed pointed to a relationship with another Christian as the context through which they were introduced to Jesus. Think about it. You and I have an incredible opportunity to point somebody to Jesus. And this next slide, look for opportunities to build bridges with people who don't know Jesus. Last Sunday, Mike and Mary Browder placed membership here, and I'm getting a chance to know Mary a little bit better, but I've had some incredible conversations with Mike, and sitting right over there, and I tell you, I just love his heart. A couple weeks ago, after church, there was a homeless guy that came outside of the building and actually came in the building, and I'm trying not to stick my foot in my mouth, but sometimes that can be a little unsettling. Can I just be honest? And I don't want it to be at a couple of the days. We've got kids. The safety of our people is the most important thing. Let me say that. We want to protect all kids, all ages, everyone. But I love Mike's heart. And here's one of the reasons why. He went over and engaged in conversation with him. A lot of times, people will say, go get Ron, go get Clay. Well, Ron and Clay are not always, we do the best we can. But you know what, we can't be in all places at all times. Only God can do that. We know that. But Mike stayed there with him and talked with him and walked with him. And I so appreciate that. Afterwards, after many people left, I went over there and talked with Mike and talked with Marcus. That's his name, Marcus. And we got to talking to Marcus, and everyone has a story. It was a difficult story. He'd been through so much. Mike and I got the opportunity to talk with him, to visit, to listen, to give him a Bible, and to pray with him. And also maybe say, hey, we've got a clothing ministry here. If you need anything, we don't want to just send you on your way. What do you need? And we got a chance just to visit with him. He came by the next week, and we got a chance to talk and visit and pray some more. So often we let opportunities go right by, don't we? So I pray you and I will take advantage of the opportunities that God brings our way. Because I'm telling you, if you pray for it, if you look for it, they're there. I promise. So, we have an opportunity. This is an opportunity that could be all of us partnering together in. I went down a month ago, and I had a conversation with the principal down at Shedeck Elementary School. And I basically went in, and you'll see, I'm going to show you a little bit of a video clip. I got a chance to get to know her a little bit better. I kind of knew her a little bit. And we have an incredible opportunity later this summer that we could go down and be the hands and feet of Jesus in this community and do something cool. Check out this video. I'm here with Deidre Bradley. She is the principal down here at Shedeck. We are talking about Be the Church Sunday and coming down here and serving in the name of Jesus and just partnering with them in every way. So I want to bow out of the way and just turn it over to Deidre and her to share her heart and some of the things we have talked about as we lead up to Be the Church Sunday.
Oh, wow. First of all, let me say how excited I am for this opportunity, and hopefully I won't go over time, because anytime you talk about, first of all, you're talking about Jesus, one of my number one passion, but also talking about kids, my second passion, and families and education, all of the things that I'm passionate about. So thank you all for this opportunity and what you're doing with this. I'm already getting excited about it. And so when we've connected, I was just so blessed by it. And just to share just a tiny bit, I know I don't have a lot of time, but I'm going to still talk about it anyway. There are times when as leaders, sometimes you feel by yourself and you feel alone. And I was having one of those moments, one of those little, as I call it, a little pity party, oh, woe is me, and I'm crying and like, oh my God, I want to do so much. How am I going to do this and that? And he said, don't worry, I have help on the way. And so it was like 2 hours later, this pastor walks in and says, how can I help you and serve you? I was like, then I almost like fall on the floor. I was like, man, God, that was fast. And so I'm really excited just to share some of the things that our school needs and how you guys can support us. Did I say right, or did I talk over time?
No, not at all, not at all. We talked specifically, Deidre, about some of the things we could do leading up to this. We're going to show this video segment. We were going to, you and your husband and some of your church is going to come, and we're going to share together and really be kingdom-minded, which we love.
Yes.
And but that Sunday, as we're planning on coming down and serving, what are some things that we could do specifically?
Okay. Well, first of all, definitely pray. Pray. Did I say pray? Pray. There's power in prayer, and one thing that we've learned, and especially as educators, we know that words are powerful. So some of the things that we invest in our kids is just sharing those words of encouragement, giving them hope, and telling them how awesome they are, because sometimes our kids don't hear it. And so one of the main things as a church that you can do, because I know that you all understand the value and the power of prayer, is to pray. Pray for our children. Some of our children have challenges in their homes. Some of them don't have the same, family connections and supports that we may experience. And so praying for our kids and those challenges, and that they will get what they need to overcome them. Praying for our teachers. Oh man, our teachers are fantastic. They have a heart for this job and a heart for this mission. But sometimes it can wear you out and it can wear you thin. And so covering them in prayer, giving them words of encouragement, dropping an email or sending them a note just to let them know, hey, I appreciate you. Helping our grounds to stay beautiful. I mean, everybody loves a beautiful school. Everybody loves a beautiful home. Even myself, I love going by a house. I'm like, oh, look at that flower bed. It's gorgeous. Can I do that? So things even as simple as that is, making sure that our home looks beautiful. So when kids come in, they feel like they're coming to a place that's going to take care of them. And then, of course, always giving them a snack. They love that too.
It was so cool, as we were just talking about getting outside the walls of the church and being the church. We're looking at the first Sunday in August.
Yes.
That Sunday doing that, and we're going to get more specific as we go along about what specifically they need,
Yes.
so that we together can
Yes.
be the church.
Come on, it takes all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, it's funny. You know, you get a little nervous before you do a clip like that, and then you get in there, and she's just a fireball, and I'm like, you got this. I'll be less. You be more. And I tell you, she is so excited. She's a pastor's wife, and the plan is sometime in July. They're in a small church off Northwest Expressway. They're going to shut the doors that day, and they're going to come in and be a part of our church that day as we partner together to see God do something cool in this area right down the street. Will you stand with us, please? You know, we never want to end the service without giving people the opportunity, first and foremost, to give their lives to Jesus. That's where it all starts. And if you have a prayer request of any kind, as this song, we share this song, you can come forward. But can I just encourage you, maybe right now, you've been a little bit like me at times and been a little complacent. And maybe now it's time that we be the church and we look for opportunities that God brings our way. If you have a decision of any kind, won't you come forward as we sing this song?